Hi, welcome to SchezzWho, your top spot for politics. This channel is at 227 subscribers right now. As you are watching this great show tonight, make sure that you like the video, make sure you comment on the video, and make sure you subscribe to this SchezzWho channel so this can keep gaining momentum. Tonight, I'll have a panel of Virginians on to talk about the special election in April for a Virginia amendment on congressional redistricting. And before I do that, let me read off all the people who make sure this show keeps going, starting with the Dissent Agenda, hosted by Melissa Lucasen and Cody Connor. Farley Perkins at the Farley Perkins Agency. Ellen at Ellen's Homestyle Barbecue Express, as well as ELG Sweet Boutique here in Portsmouth. My good friend, Mr. Seiko Varner, who does Positive Vibes Incorporated. And last but certainly not least, the Black Swan Podcast, The Chronicles on Substack and YouTube, here through my lovely wife, Andrea Dixon SchezzWho. Now, Virginia's proposed constitutional amendment is set to be before the voters by April 21st. But what is it? Why is it happening? And what position should we as Virginians take on it? So joining SchezzWho to discuss this is a special panel who are quite invested in this topic. Pete Barlow is a candidate for the Democratic nomination in Virginia's 6th district. Haley Dollar is the Libertarian nomination for Virginia's 3rd congressional district. She'll be joining us soon. And Erica Kopp is a candidate for the Democratic nomination in Virginia's 1st district. And Ryan Gilliam is a former Republican candidate in Virginia Beach for City Council. So I will bring you guys on all right now, and we will have our panel. Let's get to talking about redistricting in Virginia. And I'm going to lead off with going back to 2020. Virginia proposed and passed question 1. There was an amendment which passed at 65% that set up an independent commission, setting up an equal Democrat and Republican member amount, and using the 2020 census, they draw Virginia's Congress maps. This is what we're currently operating on. And currently, Virginia's Congress folks are 6 Democrats and 5 Republicans for roughly a 54.5% Democrat lead. That's not far from the results of Virginia's statewide races, where usually the Senate Democrat or Governor Democrat would win by about 55 to 45. So my first question is going to be to the panel, is that commission from 2020 and 2021 and the resulting lines a good thing? Let's start with Pete Barlow up at the top.
Hey, thanks for having us on, Ryan, or Conrad. So nice to meet you, Ryan and Erica. I'm so glad that we have people from different parties on the same show. It seems like in Virginia, we're just in echo chambers all the time. But I'll just say that I've got friends and neighbors who worked really, really hard on that bipartisan commission back in 2020. They worked across party lines, as we all know, and they developed a map that I think the 6th congressional district, if anybody's aware of it, I hope you all are, is gargantuan. It's the size of New Jersey. We've got 220 miles of 81 in this district. It's crazy that we have to drive so far. Like, people in Norfolk have no idea what running a campaign in rural Virginia is like. So it's crazy, but it still is representative of communities and interdependent economies, religious backgrounds. A lot of people in the Anabaptist community, like me, like this whole area was founded by similar groups. And we really take seriously our refugee resettlement programs and things like that that are similar for Winchester and Harrisonburg and some of these cities that are over here. So, I think that it was a great thing. So I'll be quiet and let somebody else go.
Let's drop it down to Miss Erica Kopp running again.
I'm sorry, Conrad, I can't hear you.
I removed my mute. Can you hear me now? Better or not? Pete, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, so I think it might be on Erica's side. But in any case, I'll try to just give it to you before you can answer the same question.
I can't hear you.
All right. Why don't you do the same thing where you hop off and hop back on, but you'll get the question as soon as you hop on.
Shoot.
All right. I'll give it a second. Let's go to Mr. Ryan. Again, the commission itself, was it a good thing? And the lines now, is that a good thing?
I mean, I think overall, given the constructs of what we have to work with as a Commonwealth, I think it, yes, overall, I do believe personally that yes, it was a good thing.
All right. I'm going to put in the chat for Erica to read, for her to hop off and hop on. All right. Read the chat. Yeah, the next question will be, well, she's hopping off and hopping on now. Hopefully she'll be able to hear me shortly. As they say in the biz, not to make sure you don't have dead time on your shows. Hopefully this isn't going to last all that long.
Well, I'd love to know, Ryan, what was your role that you were seeking back a couple terms ago? City Council. I should know this. Oh.
Ryan, can you hear? All right, here she goes. All right. Welcome back, Miss Erica. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent, excellent. I'm curious your position on the. Is he?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Pete. Well, I mean, yeah, it was for City Council back in 2024, and obviously, I did not win that, but learned a lot.
Awesome.
Excellent, excellent.
Can you hear me?
I do want to throw it back to. I can. Yes. It sounds like you're almost on a delay.
I hear you, Conrad. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, there you go.
So just hold on. And I want to throw it to Miss Erica here. The commission in 2020, the vote and the lines from that time, are they a good thing?
I think, yes, it is a good thing because it allows for something other than politics to play a part in deciding the lines of where we're going to be represented. So I think in general, yes, we do need something that's independent to create a more fair map.
All right. I think we might all be in agreement on that. I voted yes for it too back in 2020. But we hear about the new ones, which leads us to 2025. We have a new aggressive president. He then sounds the alarm to friendly states that voted for him to redraw maps that would benefit Republicans. He said that on camera, that maps and seats he felt entitled to. This was smack in the 2025 Virginia governor race too. Texas drew their map to be more red. North Carolina went at it. Indiana shot it down. Missouri passed redder maps. And just yesterday, their Supreme Court allowed their map to stand. In April, Florida will have a legislative session called forth by DeSantis to withdraw Florida's maps to be redder too. So the question I will put to the panel, what is that 2025 push and now push to withdraw really about, and should states that aren't participating in that be worried about that? I want to start with Ms. Erica this time.
So,
Ooh. Not
I'm
good.
here. I just removed myself for you guys to be able to get more screen.
okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Basically, try to break down what the 2025 to 2026 push for redistricting began as, and should the other states worry about what other states are doing?
Yeah, so I think we have seen in previous years that in off-year elections, so midterm elections, it is typical for the transfer of power to go against the presidency. So in 2018, there was a huge shift towards Democratic elected officials. And in anticipation of that, if more Democratic elected officials are elected in the midterms in 2026, that will very likely cause Donald Trump to be impeached. And I think he's trying to head that off before it happens. And I
All
do
right.
think other states should be concerned with what's happening in other places.
All right. Now, in that vein, I want to throw it to Mr. Ryan. And even though I don't see you, you're still on the feed. So you'll be able to just say your opinion on whether other states should worry about this.
Well, yeah, I think it's a worry for all the states in the union, quite frankly. I find the idea of gerrymandering to begin with to be absolutely reprehensible. So, I mean, I'll come out flat out and say it. I know the history of gerrymandering. I'm sure you all do as well. We call ourselves the mother of presidents in Virginia. Well, that's also where gerrymandering began. So, it's not something to be proud of, in my opinion. I mean, just because someone had a beef with Patrick Henry. But, they always say the old adage is violence begets violence. And while we're talking about politics here and we're all civil and calm, an action usually, gets an equal and opposite reaction, right? So I think this thing could cascade into something dreadful if it's allowed to continue. And that's on both sides, by the way. I think that this whole thing just needs to be shut off like a faucet. That's why I was in agreement with a commission, independent committee that would at least try to make it as, fair as possible, under the Equal Protection Clause. So, I have my own opinions, but we'll get deeper into that. But I don't want to drown you out with an answer, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
And I want to throw it to Mr. Pete. If you could explain to us what your view of the 2025 push to withdrawal was about, and should other states be worried about it?
Yeah, and I'm going to turn off my camera because I feel like my internet might be slow here. So
Just the camera.
but I'm still with you. I really feel like this is a bad move on a number of levels. To have a 2025 map that we're looking at, I think Ryan makes a good point, and I do want to echo that we have real divisions here between our communities and within our communities. I think right now we look at all the wars that are being fought abroad, and some of this anxiety that we see in the world abroad, that we are wreaking havoc on other countries right now. I think that's a proxy for some of the anxieties and divisions we have here at home. And while I think that it makes a lot of sense, I've got a lot of friends who are immigrants or persons of color, people who feel like this is the only way to fight back. I don't think it's real fighting when we pay career politicians and lawyers in Richmond to just draw maps around our neighbors. I think that it's wrong-headed for a number of reasons. It says, hey, our candidates aren't good enough to win. Our messaging isn't one that sells. And it's saying that our neighbors aren't people who will change. And I think all three are wrong. So not only is it wrong, though, but we are, if you even think about, if you're in support of gerrymandering in this way, just to be able to get the republic back, which a lot of people would say that's what we have to do right now. It's a break glass moment. I think you can tell that we are taking what was probably a 9-2 map after the gubernatorial win. We saw a lot of people changing. A lot of moderates came over to the left and voted for Spanberger because they said enough is enough. And to say that it's a 6-5 map is not fully realizing that we do have probably a 9-2 map already. And we're doing all this, we're confusing all of our constituents for maybe one seat. I think that's wrong-headed. But then when you think about the fact that we've got margins in Northern Virginian urban areas that we are diluting by pulling them out into rural areas, we are, there might be some unintended consequences to this, and the fact that there's going to be, in 4 years a governor from another party probably, and we are setting a precedent here for really going back and forth this pendulum, and at some point we have to stop. And I feel like if the Democratic Party doesn't stop, the Republican Party has shown that it won't. I mean, we see at the national level a party that is in charge of this administration that is not willing to be a check and balance on really egregious things. And if the Democrats aren't that check, I don't know who will be.
I do want to throw a comment up on the screen and read it aloud from Luna's Mutual Aid. When people say it's time to play dirty like the right, it's a little late. There are steps that could have been done earlier and other positions that could have been done, wasting time in their opinion. And using 2020 hindsight, I believe how great it would be if all 50 states had passed a type of redistricting commission that we did back in 2020, because then we would not have had to be responding to what we're seeing right now, which will lead me, of course, to my next question, back to Virginia itself. Spanberger signed an executive order on this, and Virginia joins California as a blue state looking to withdraw their maps to counter what the red states are doing. California's measure was sent to the voters and they passed it, and thusly California is possibly going to be even bluer this November. Virginia is also putting it before the voters. So this question is to the panel: is it significant that the red states did their efforts through the legislature and the blue states put it before their people? So I want to lead it off with Mr. Ryan this time. Again, is it significant that Virginia sort of at least putting it before the voters? California did too, and some of the other states are not.
Well, that has to do with the particular laws that are, respective to that state. California has a proposition system, that was developed by Upton Sinclair, and he was big on having the voice of the people, right? The Vox Populi come in and say, hey, we want to do this. What do you think? And, some good things have come out of that, for California, like a good community college system. I used to be stationed out there when I was in the Marine Corps, and it is fantastic, but other things, maybe not so much. California was already solidly blue due to gerrymandering. And you can look at some congressional districts where one little piece will be in Santa Monica, which is right there on the coast, and it'll extend all the way out to like Imperial Valley. I don't know how familiar all are with the geography of California, but I mean, that's a pretty big stretch. That's not a very organically drawn district. It was done surgically, and and that's the case with California. Now in Virginia, we're a little bit different. We're not California. You hear a lot of hyperbole out there. Don't make Virginia California, or people like, yes, make Virginia like California. Depending on what side you fall on that coin. But the vast majority of Virginia geographically tends to vote somewhat more conservative. You get up to Northern Virginia, a little bit more progressive, and you get down to the southeast here, and some people like to say it's purple. Well, if this plan goes forward, that will not be the case anymore. And to Pete's point, to put a finer point on it, you're diluting Northern Virginia, extending into the rural areas, and you might be cutting off your nose to spite your face, because what if these rural people out there activate, basically, and overwhelm the
I'm unmuting myself, but Ryan's feed he's still in the group, but it's acting a little choppy. Finish your answer. You back
Sorry.
on the screen. Yeah.
I apologize. Yeah, no, I
Shoot. I would
apologies. But yeah, no, like I was saying earlier, to Pete's point, like I said, this could backfire. That's why we shouldn't go ahead with this at all, in my opinion. So, bad idea.
I do want to first welcome to the stage Miss Haley Dollar, who is running in Virginia's 3rd District as a Libertarian nominee.
Hey, everyone.
Just getting on after finishing your work shift. I am curious, have you been able to hear some of the questions so far?
I haven't seen anything. I literally drove straight from work to here. threw on some sweats, some clean clothes, because, my job, as you know, Conrad, I saw you earlier today, is a labor of love. I do a lot of cleaning and of jewelry and all kinds of things. So as soon as I get home, so I don't have my politician costume on for you guys this evening, so I apologize.
I want you to catch up a little bit. I'll
Okay.
try to get a little bit of quickness to the answer if you can, and that would be, do you like what the commission did in 2020 with the Virginia's vote and the lines that have since come after? Do you like where we're currently at?
When it comes to the current lines where they fall, not the proposed ones, I'm hearing a little feedback. Do you hear that?
That's on Ryan's end, I bet. I'm going to mute you, Mr. Ryan.
Okay.
All right, so,
Okay, there we go. Yeah, there is a little, just want to make sure it wasn't me. I have children and pets, so at any given time, there's background noise. So currently the way the lines lie, I think there can be room for improvement. The only issues that I really have with these proposals is the fact that as the people, doesn't matter which party you associate with, whether it's Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent even, we have not been privy to making the choice of how these proposed lines should be. And that is my biggest issue with it. Do I think that amending some of the current infrastructure that exists within those lines can be good? Yes. Do I think some of it does need to be improved? Possibly. But we should, as the people, have access to those decisions before we're just expected to vote yes or no on just a blanketed statement. Because I think we all can agree that, Pete, if you weren't asked, how do you feel about this? Erica, if you weren't asked, okay, what's your opinion on this and how does it affect your district? Conrad, if you weren't asked, okay, well, how do you feel about this? Like, just for your individual areas, I feel like there needs to be more community involvement and input, because when the marketing is done, whether it's from the right or the left, we see these inconsistencies where it's promoting either side of the menu, saying don't let politicians make these decisions for you, when currently you can look at any news article, whether it's Daily Press, WTKR, the lines have already been proposed. They already have a good idea of what they're trying to accomplish. So I think that instead of rushing decisions like this, that can have major implications out to, I think it was like, what, the 2030 census? Something like that. So I think before we make what feels like a rushed decision, I think we need to take a little bit more time to analyze the future implications of not just the proposed changes, but are these proposed changes really what's best for the people overall, not just one party or one advantage?
And I also want you to catch up on whether or not you have a full appreciation of where the push to do this came from other states, and should states that aren't doing this be worried about it?
I don't think states should be worried, but I feel like most people, when any big changes are happening, good, positive, and different, people tend to freak out a little bit. And what we lack right now within our current, legislative bodies, public figures, and things like that is they are not giving information and disseminating it to a public in a way that we can consume and fully understand. Not just us as politicians, pillars in our communities, volunteers, advocates, we all have a good taste of how things are supposed to work within different agencies, alike. But until we all collectively come together and stop fighting over whose team is the best and who's trying to win, we need to find a way to communicate and compromise to where it's not just one party saying this is the best choice because I said so. It needs to come from the hearts of the people. We need to be explaining to them, not only, why this is good for you potentially, but how is this possibly going to affect you and your ability to vote? How is this going to reflect on the representatives that are able to be brought forward as candidates, as nominees, things in that nature? How is that going to look over the next 5 to 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And there has to be some baseline for projection of that. And I think that's where your reference of other states that have started implementing these things. Well, when something has just been implemented, whether we're talking, medications going through trials or new laws that are, being passed, there's a lot of variables we haven't seen go into play yet. So we can't fully say that these states, if they've just made these changes within the last 5 to 10 years, are fully successful unless we can prove like very positive trends. And that's not just going to be with the numbers that are produced, but also you have to tie in the opinions of the community. Because unfortunately, as we see, community opinions may not always reflect the vote. It's because not everyone gets out and votes. The Republican Party is notorious for that. They love to have strong voices and get really upset when things don't go in certain directions. But when it comes to boots on ground, people donating, actually connecting with their communities, that's why other parties have the supremacy there, because they're actually getting out to meet with the people and giving, whether it's a perception or whether it is how it really is, if they do truly care, they're providing this education to the people. They're telling them, like, for example, Conrad, I said to you today, I haven't voted on this yet because I wanted to take this evening and hear multiple perspectives and opinions on the matter. So that way I could form a good conclusion. I know that when it comes to my party, I know how they generally want us to vote. But until I have all of the facts and an array of opinions coming from not just within my district, but also beyond, because I want to know how this is going to affect other people as well. So I can't wait to hear the rest of you guys, share your wealth of knowledge, your opinions. And so that way, by the end of this conversation, I can wake up and go vote tomorrow and feel really good about my choice.
And
can I follow up on that real quick?
Yes, sir.
Great to see you, Haley. Two things that just made me think of. I think we should
I think
really
he's
talk
muted.
Oh, I'm muted.
Oh,
No,
can you not hear him either?
I can
Yeah,
hear.
I can't hear him.
So it's interesting. Haley can hear Erica. Erica can hear Haley. Neither of you two can hear Pete. Both of you can hear me. That is interesting. Let's just play it to the best of our ability. But
Okay.
Mr.
Hollywood squares, but politics. Pete, we have to read your lips to answer you effectively. Can we hear Ryan at all?
Ryan, say something, just to say something.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
Can you hear me,
I heard Pat.
Conrad?
Yes. I
Okay.
can hear you.
I'll just say a couple of things.
Okay. Right.
It's
Well, anyways,
suspect-
let Pete ask the question and then he can just relay it to us, Conrad. I'll wait.
It's suspect one that both party establishments are throwing tens and the Democrats are up to $20 million for this yes vote. The Republicans are throwing millions, tens of millions of dollars at redistricting around the nation. The fact that neither party establishment trusts the constituency to change or vote and are still trying to draw the lines, I think is suspect. And we should really question when both party establishments aren't willing to invest in real rural ground games and voter turnout, but they are willing to invest in a campaign to tell us how to vote on something. So that's one thing that I think is really interesting. The second thing that Haley made me think of, and I'm sorry that she can't hear this and respond, but is the 7th congressional district is what I would be redistricted into were the referendum to pass. Now, the 7th congressional district would have two candidates coming out of Fairfax, 2.5 hours away driving from a lot of the constituents down in this rural part of the district. So we are putting the beltway practically of DC around Washington, DC with people who, the largest industry around here is farming. Most of the, we worry more about droughts and things like that than we do about the stock market changes and the pump and dump switches that we see. So I just think that, the other day I met one of these candidates coming down from Northern Virginia, clearly bootlegging into this part of Virginia and not knowing local issues around farming, around AI data centers and what that's going to mean for our local poultry industry and beef cattle. And that's not their fault. It's just the fact that we're trying to mix apples and oranges. And people who serve a different community coming into other areas where they really haven't studied up. And that's a problem. But those two things really stick out to me. I'd
All
love
right,
to hear your thoughts.
So I want to paraphrase it. So I can.
This is going to be the greatest moment in the telephone game of politics history. So just because now, like, Keith, let me just say, I was like, I'm sitting here and I'm watching you, and you were like, whatever you were saying, you were really into it. So go ahead, Conrad. Try to fit all of that passion from the last 5 minutes into the cliff notes.
Do you have a concern regarding too much money being spent from both parties on this, as opposed to larger grassroots-based voter drive options, sort of leading you to one side or the other from the top down? And do you have concern that some of these districts are going to be so sprawled and so connected, say, to Northern Virginia, that it messes with the representative nature of the more either lightly suburban or completely agricultural type of district? So Erica hasn't had a chance to answer in a minute, so I want her to sort of respond to that idea.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've seen is that Democrats are prepared to spend something ridiculous like multi-million dollars on this particular redistricting campaign, which I think is nonsensical. That money could have been better used to have a better ground game and educate people as to this is what's happening, this is what we can do about it. And 22 million. Yeah. The last figure that I heard was 10 million. So I'm not surprised to hear that it's gone up. But I really do think that that money could have been spent better by getting out the vote and doing things on the ground with the people rather than pushing ads for or against this effort. Conrad, you're muted.
I keep forgetting I mute myself sometimes. Let's throw it to Haley to answer the same question.
So honestly, I'm right in line with Erica there. I think that we need to take more time and consideration to truly assess what's going to be best for the voters. And all of the concerns that you mentioned, Conrad, when it came to it, are valid. I can see why people would be concerned, where some of these lines don't make sense. A good friend of mine, he is an independent, and his biggest concern is with the changes in CD2 and how, it'll go from, kind of like mid York County up through Appomattox. And, as someone who's been big in the community and has like family ties here, they're concerned about that because they know that the concerns of the people of Appomattox are probably going to greatly differ from those of York County. I mean, there's going to be similarities there, but it's kind of like, in a way, we have to anticipate that whether these changes happen or not, at some point we will be making amendments and changes because, when it comes to change, when it comes to the integration of new businesses, rezoning, and even when it comes to these things, like, we have to be ready for change, because if we don't change, we're stagnant. And we can all agree that there may be some areas that, we can make some slight changes to that may be more beneficial for the people who live there, despite political affiliation. I mean, when I looked at the proposed redistricting map, I noticed that a lot of what I consider to be rural Virginia was like lumped together. And I see that almost as an advantage to some Republicans, because generally that's where their greatest strength in the voter dynamic is. But then when you look across the map, you see the rest of it, seem to be a little more beneficial to, another side. So my biggest thing is this, really, in what way do these changes truly benefit the people? Is it, because I've seen so many ads when it comes to it being compared to taking advantage of people by comparing it to, say, Jim Crow. I think we've all maybe seen the news articles about that. Maybe even some of you got leaflets in the mail. So what I would really like to know is really how is it going to help the people? Is it really going to help them get out and vote at all? Or is this once again just another move by parties, between parties, fighting over perceived power and domination over the voter dynamic that we've already seen greatly decline over the last few years.
I'll take that.
I know you want to follow up, Mr. Pete. Hold that thought right in your
Mhm.
finger because I want to first verify. Ryan, can you hear me?
I can hear all of you, finally.
Yes,
Yay!
Ryan,
So
come here.
I want you to, having just heard what Haley and Erica said, I want your thoughts before we get Pete's follow-up.
I agree with a lot of the sentiment. You know, I mean, is this a good thing? Well, I guess.
Oh man,
I mean, he's still here.
just when we had him.
No, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Oh, sweet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep going. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay. This thing that was put into motion, regardless of whatever the genesis of it was, I think is extremely destructive to our republic. And I will speak in those terms because anyone that's heard.
Oh, no.
Oh no.
I can't hear him.
Okay, so he's disappeared.
He's still here.
Marco.
Very, very scratchy, Mr. Ryan.
I don't embrace everything and you know, all the party planks, but I believe in the creed. So, you know, for the most part, I don't think that government should do what it's doing right now, and that's on both sides of the coin. I'll just put this out here right now. I can tell you what the thought was, generally speaking, from our side. What happened to make this something that, you know, the Trump administration said, hey, you know, why don't you go ahead and change your, you know, your districts? And I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but confirming the American citizenship of a voter is paramount. Most of America agrees with it, at least 75 to 80%. And that's kind of not happening in a couple of key states. And when the electorate is so tight come election night, you know, I think most Americans agree that they want someone who's an American citizen voting. And
I'd say
there's
hold
a
that
kind of
thought.
an idea out there that, well, there's no non-citizens voting. Well, that's entirely disingenuous just because the law is required to vote in certain states. So that kind of, I think, lit a fuse under some people on my side. Not all of them, but some. And then, of course, you know, it's been said here, there's a pendulum. So there's got to be a counterbalance to that. And what we're seeing right now with stuff like this that we're getting in the mail, here's your counterbalance, and they're coming after it. And they want to see it swing the other way. You know, this two-party duopoly that I and all of you, we all participate in, I mean, it is what it is, you know, but it doesn't mean it's always the best thing for us. And I think that what Texas did and what California did and Missouri did, whatever those states did, that's on them. But this is Virginia. And in Virginia, we don't need any other states to tell us how to behave. And I'm just disgusted with the whole thing. I can't believe that it's come to this, that we need to do tit for tat. It's like a nuclear exchange. Oh, they dropped 1 kiloton. Let's drop a megaton. Oh, let's drop 5 megaton. You see what I'm saying? It's so, it really turns off a lot of voters. And so they rely on crap like this to go out and make a decision. And of course, they're not as educated as we are in terms of politics and those sort of nuances. But, you know, this is what we have to work with. This is it. I'll stop. You didn't hear me for a long time, so I had to fill all that time in real quick.
Glad I'm able to get your opinion, but just hold any. That sounded a little bit like.
Oh, now I can't hear you again, Conrad. You're
Oh,
muted.
what?
It
Ryan.
sounded like.
All right, I'm muting him for a second, but not taking him off because if you can hear me without any other noise coming through, that sounded like a little bit of critique to the SAVE Act, and I'm like, why don't we just save that for a SAVE Act show? Because we're going to be doing a, we'd like to do a show on that too. So if you guys are interested in hopping onto that, that'd be great. But Mr. Pete, you did have a follow-up.
But no. What was just said? Because there's a lot that transpired there, and I heard a few O's and ahs. So can we get the cliff notes, Conrad? Because Erica and I were not privy to all of that, and I feel like we're missing out on, possibly good points. I don't know what Ryan had to say at all.
All right,
You can't
that's
hear him.
my ability to paraphrase. If
Mhm.
he showing his disgust about this entire process.
Okay.
But it also led into sort of side topics. That wasn't about Virginia redistricting. It was about whether or not you needed to be a citizen to vote in the first place, and IDs. And
Oh,
like,
okay.
we're starting to think like another current topic, which is the SAVE Act, but we could save that for a SAVE Act show. So
Okay.
we'll keep
I was
it-
just curious, but I mean, I understand. So was it just mostly tied in with like voter fraud as well? You know,
Mhm.
like do you want to like, cut that back and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so
All right. So if you can still, yeah, I'm not muted. So Mr. Pete, I don't want you to lose your thought.
Well, that kind of builds on something that I was going to say. I do think, and Ryan and I are going to just have to duke this out at some point. He'll probably win because he looks like he could beat me up. But
Oh, no. No, we're not going there.
no. But I do think that the SAVE Act, both parties are playing on fears of the constituents, and the SAVE Act to tell people that people are illegally voting. The instances of voter fraud in the U.S. in the last 25 years is something like 4/10,000ths of the voters. There's been 25 cases that have been documented. So it's hyperbolic to be having a SAVE Act and all this time, all this congressional money, all this treasure being thrown at an act that is just playing on people's fears of each other, and it's not grounded in fact. So I know that you don't want to talk about the SAVE Act, but that was one thing, because I think that the Democrats are also playing on fear. They're saying, by redistricting, we will be able to get our democracy back, and we'll be able to get back on track, and we'll actually keep ICE in check, and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just saying that both parties are playing on fears, because that's how you get votes, and it's not based in evidence or reality, and that's the problem, I think.
To which case, I'll bring it back to the topic at hand, because that is where our best angels on the process is what created the committee to create districts in the first place, was because it was independent and it allowed both Republican and Democrats in an equal measure to decide on districts. So circling back around, that's probably where that would come from. Now, you, Haley, and Erica probably didn't hear what Pete just said, right?
we didn't hear a word, Conrad, but what I will say, Pete, is like it's really hard, I'm sure you're saying really prolific things, but when I can't hear any of it, it's hard for me to keep a straight face. Because have you ever seen like bad lip reading? So I'm trying to read your lips through a screen that's like this big, all while you're doing these hand gestures. And so if you ever see me I'm not laughing at whatever you're saying. I'm sure it's great, and I'm going to go back and watch this. But like,
Don't be so sure.
Go ahead, Conrad. Give Erica and I the cliff notes, since we can't be part of the boys club and hear the boys when they speak. How very democratic of you to put us, in the guest room with no sound, so the men can do their canoodling, and we're just over here trying to read lips and hand interpret.
Touche.
Basically, if you tie in the idea of worrying about non-citizens voting, voter fraud is a concept,
Mm-hmm.
and the system being something worthy of distrust. There's probably a lot of distrust in the system. Perhaps both you, Haley, and Erica feel a version of distrust, even if it's not the same distrust that Pete and Ryan have. So I would like to throw it perhaps to both of you simultaneously, or just one at a time. You guys pick. What do you think about similar voting topics like voter fraud? Is this something to worry about, or should we worry about more other things related to redistricting?
I think voter fraud is definitely something to worry about at any level. But if we're being completely honest, I know most of you probably had to go and get a real ID, since I'm sure we all love to travel, right? Now it's a requirement. The hoops that I had to jump through to get that, to include having to get like a divorce decree from like 20 something years ago, just to prove who I am, that my name is my name. This is how we got here. If the voter fraud does exist where there are people that aren't citizens voting, like I would really like to focus on what that dynamic is to a degree. They should have, you know, a certain subculture of law enforcement that's like a specific task force that they target things like that, like they would anything else. But on a massive scale, it's a little hard for me to digest because if that were true, that there were non-citizens constantly voting, that means that we do have a much larger issue when it comes to security, when it comes to verification. And I mean, we've seen it on different levels to include people using their, dead loved ones' identities to vote and things like that. And like anything in government, we just need to streamline it. We need to hold people accountable. We need to actually check through the process because if we're not constantly checking to see that things are being done correctly, if people are being held accountable, if they're not, reading the form and doing their job to a T, not being corrected, then we will see that happening over and over again, whether it's by mistake or whether it's by design. And whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or whatever else, like I think we all can agree through a number of elections that, if somebody was polling for the other side or if some machines were messed up, in the Army, we used to say, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And I think we are all, when we look at it, complicit of it. So I think instead of, if illegal immigrants are truly voting on that like massive scale, then for sure it needs to be investigated because then that goes along with a lot of other areas of fraud that could prove to waste and things like that. It sounds like a great concept. I don't know. Maybe call Christy Nome up. I heard she might need a hobby or something lately.
Or
Who
a job.
knows?
What I want to do now, Miss
Or
Haley,
Christy.
is take what you just said because I know Erica heard it. I want her to both respond to that and adding in topics of fairness to this whole process, this redistricting process. Is it badly timed? I want to give her all those topics and her final thoughts because I know that she might be running out of time.
Cool. I'm listening, but my camera's off. Can't wait.
Okay. So I think going off of what Haley said, yes, if we believe that voter fraud is happening, let's find it. However, the evidence shows that it is virtually non-existent. The Heritage Foundation's own data shows that since 1982, there have been 99 cases of voter fraud. And that's how many years ago? 44? So it's almost a non-existent problem to have less than 100 cases of voter fraud over the last 44 years. Again, if there is widespread fraud as is claimed, show me some proof. I'm an attorney. I don't work off vibes. I work off evidence. And so I think it's really important that if what we're doing is to prevent fraud, we have a reason that we need to be looking for fraud. I don't think we have that reason.
All right. And I also want to give you the floor. Is this current redistricting process, is it badly timed? Is it unfair? And what are your just general thoughts as a position as you get ready to head off the show?
General thoughts. I understand why we're doing it. I understand that it is to counteract the measures that the Trump administration initiated with saying that it's entitled to pick up more seats, with Texas, trying with Ohio, now going to Florida. So I understand why it's happening is a countermeasure to counterbalance. I understand it's a temporary position of changing the maps between now and the new census in 2030 to level the playing field. I get that. Is it going to make things difficult? Yes. Is it going to draw my house right out of my own district? Also, yes. But I think this is a bigger global, well, not global, but like nationwide thing that it is important for big D democracy to still be possible. Because with Donald Trump calling up the legislatures, and I want to point out, Conrad, to your point earlier about whether there's a difference between red states doing this through its legislatures and blue states doing it through the will of the people. I think it's really important to point that out, because in places where it's happening through the legislatures and not getting the consent of the people, these are states where they are already pretty heavily gerrymandered in favor of the Republican Party. And where it's happening in blue states and getting the consent of the voters, when we see the voters being given the option to choose, it does not go well for Republicans. And so I think that's another thing that's really important. And I think this is making a lot of people, particularly on the right, afraid of what's going to happen. Are there questions about how it's being done? Are there questions about the lines as they're being drawn? Yes. I don't think it's fair that there should be 5 different congressional districts coming out of Northern Virginia. But at the same time, I also understand that this is a measure to make things even and to get us to where we were before Texas decided to legislatively redraw.
All right. Thank you again, Miss Erica, for joining. This is
Thank
your
you for
first
having
time
me.
on SchezzWho. I can't wait to have you on. It's just I get to sit down and interview about why you're running in the first place. But remember, to those watching and commenting, Erica Kopp is running in Virginia's 1st district in the current Democratic primary, which I have reason to believe is what, over 10 people?
Right now it's 9. We've gotten
Okay.
down to 9.
Wow.
So,
I don't envy you.
so everyone look for Miss Erica. And again, thank you for coming on tonight. We'll keep talking, so we'll get you on again soon.
Good to see y'all. Thanks
Nice
for
to
having
meet you,
me.
Erica.
Nice to meet you too, Haley. Best of luck in your primary too.
Thanks. Oh, I don't have one.
She's
Oh,
Libertarian
well,
nominations. So.
Best of
Yeah.
luck in the general. Congrats.
Yeah. And by the way, P.S., what kind of law do you practice?
Healthcare.
Oh, I love that. I'm a paralegal by trade.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk more about law.
Of course. I would love to.
All right. Well,
You have a great night,
speak
Miss Erica.
soon. Good night.
Bye. All right, I want to bring on Pete and Ryan again we can
Can I
continue
actually,
chatting.
do I get to hear Pete this time?
Let's try
I
it
don't
out.
know.
Oh, wait.
Wait,
Marco.
Polo.
There you
I
go.
can hear Pete. Can I hear Ryan?
He's muted, but he can
Oh.
unmute himself if he
I
wishes.
love it. So I can finally hear. Beautiful.
All right, I unmuted Ryan if he wants to jump in.
Thank you, Conrad.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Look at that.
All right, I still have about a couple questions or 2 that I've had prepared. Let's go right in to that one because I wanted her to answer about fairness and timeliness. So I wanted to read about Virginia's amendment as it is literally written. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census. So it hinges on keywords like fairness, temporarily, and after it comes to pass, it sets the stage to resume the usual committee on the maps by 2030. So are there concerns about fairness and timeliness? Let's go with Mr. Ryan first this time.
Thanks, Conrad. Yeah, no,
Is he still muted?
no, I'm not muted. Can you not hear me now?
I don't think Haley can hear Ryan. I can hear Ryan. Pete, can
Okay.
you hear Ryan?
I can hear Ryan.
This
I
is so
can't.
weird. But in any case, I'll try to chunk it up for you at the end, Ms. Haley. And
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, Haley. Yeah, no. There's 2 things I wanted to address. One was the fairness and all that, and we can get back to that real quick. I mean, when President Biden was elected, there was 20 million mail-in ballots, absentee ballots that went in that didn't even play into this previous presidential election. It does beg the question of if, in terms of fairness and all that, states can decide how they process those ballots. And when you're talking about a national election for your president, I think there needs to be a finer level, it needs to be able to withstand extreme scrutiny. And there's been a lot of lawfare regarding that. But I mean, we need to call everything out, equally as it's been experienced. And so those ballots didn't really materialize this past presidential cycle. Well, where did they go? It's something to think about. And that's all I'll say about that. Now, in terms of what's going on in Virginia with the initiative, for fair elections. Can anyone name me one time the government has passed a law under the auspices of it being temporary where it wasn't eventually made codified, if not de facto permanent?
Yeah, that's something that comes to mind for me. I feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, this happened in the Civil War, income tax, and then it went away. And then in 1906, they tried it again. 1903, they tried it again. And then Wilson did it once he established the Federal Reserve. And then now income tax became income tax. And even though it was found to be unconstitutional and in a referendum by the American people as a whole, rejected flatly twice. My thing here is that if this thing is passed under the auspices of it being fair, what's to stop a state legislature in any state in the union 10 years later in a census where immigration controls are out of hand, and let's say certain states don't have a real ID requirement like the federal government has, and those states allow these individuals to come in and go ahead and vote because they're issued a driver's license, and that's all that state requires for them to vote. And there are many states in the union, we need to be honest about this, there are many states in the union that all you need is a driver's license, okay? You don't need a real ID. These are serious concerns that are worthy of a serious analysis, and we can sit here and have theory and conjecture, but until we address some of this stuff, I mean, this is all academic. It's just a bad idea. This thing can backfire on both ends. Neither major party should be supporting this. As far as libertarians, I imagine they would probably align more with the idea of having verified voting rolls. Not that Democrats don't. I don't believe that. But there's just too many things out there right now where it's not passing the smell test, I guess is the way to put it. Okay? It just doesn't. So that's my opinion. Just mine. But
okay. Well, I thank you for sharing it. And I want to see now if Pete can answer what he just heard. And by that, Haley will then be able to gather what Ryan just said and have her.
This is the most, see, you know what though? I feel like if real politicians, if they played the telephone game about issues like this, we would get a lot more done because we're actually forced to listen and relay information in real time.
Yes, I think
Love
so
it.
too.
Let's go. Let's go.
What to Ryan's point, I still feel like the voter fraud issue, the work that's being done is predicated on the lingering idea that the 2020 election was stolen, and is also a solution in search of a problem. I mean, the evidence is not there, as Erica went over earlier, for widespread voter fraud that necessitates this kind of time and money being spent on this. It's like Congress went to session for how many days 2 months ago to condemn the word socialism. They spent our taxpayer dollars sitting in Congress debating over a word and semantics. I mean, this is the kind of waste that's going on. I lost my job because this administration came in and said waste, fraud, and abuse was going on at FEMA, and a lot of people like me got kicked out of helping people before, during, and after disasters. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Congress is spending its time talking about this BS, which is just semantics and not based on real evidence. So respectfully, Ryan, I just feel like it might be an issue, but the issue is predicated on this lingering idea that the 2020 election was stolen. I think that's where it originates. But go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I want, if you can, Ryan, hold your thought right in your hand. I want to see if Haley so far has heard a gist of what Pete said via Ryan and take a response. And then I'll give Ryan a chance to rebut.
When I think it comes to waste and rigged elections and, the things that you're complaining about, which are valid 100%. And if you think our taxpayer dollars being spent on silly things like the word socialism is bad, you should take a trip with me up to Congress sometime and learn about the sex cages. And I can reference that to the recent 80-20 vote. So If you get mad about us wasting tax dollars on semantics and jargon, just imagine what our tax dollars are paying for during the day. And then after these things settle in court right now.
I would love to.
Oh,
Seriously.
yeah. We could chat about that. So, like, if words like that, if that makes you upset, what should really be making you truly upset? Then honestly, you know what? Here's the thing: if the 2020 election was rigged, awful, terrible. But you know what? We've had so much time since then to address the issue if it was, and we can look at like any other state. Like we've seen this happen. I don't know why it always ends up happening in Florida. Everything happens in Florida, but or Ohio, or I think Michigan had issues at one point that was like astronomically huge. Georgia even had issues where they were finding ballots and dumpsters and things like that. Because I too have a friend that worked for FEMA, and unfortunately he got let go after the previous administration. So I'm tracking on, when it comes to administrations coming in, they clean house of employees that don't usually completely align with, what their mission they believe is oriented to be. I think that voter fraud as a whole, like we need to just stop just talking about it, because we've been talking about it for how long, and just address it. Just get it on the table. I think that right now, one of the biggest issues I have with this whole redistricting conversation is the fact that both parties are spending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not into the millions,
And we're not
making all
talking about
this.
any issues.
Exactly. So no real issues. And instead of trying to sway voters on one issue or another, that money could be invested in communities, into
Yeah.
real change, into really helping people, into helping people right now who can't afford their electric bill, who can't afford medications right now, groceries with inflation, gas, now that gas has shot up through the roof. It's an important issue we all do need to discuss, and whether it goes one way or the other, we're going to end up dealing with it afterwards. No matter yes or no, or Republican or Democrat, we're going to end up having to deal with the fallout for the next couple of years. And that's great. We'll figure it out. But my biggest concern is, why do we still find it acceptable, no matter what party affiliation, to be blowing this kind of money on campaigns like that? When we know, coming from, and I don't know if you guys come from humble grassroots like myself, but I've run events. I ran a campaign last year that was very humble, but I've seen what it can take to run, what can be perceived as a successful campaign.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we look at these big budgets for Democrats, for Republicans, and the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and really, who is winning there? Are the voters becoming more educated? Is it truly inspiring them to get out and really play for the team? Is it going to bring lasting change? Is it going to improve the community? I don't know. Like, you guys tell me. It's a huge issue we do need to be concerned about, because imminent change is on the horizon. But at the end of the day, we still have pedophiles, no matter what party, running our country right now. There has been no accountability. And yet we as the people we're supposed to stomach this and just go out and vote and say, okay, yes, because this is good. No, because it's bad, because we don't want change, or for whatever it is. My biggest concern is have the people actually had a real input in this, and how will this affect them? I don't care what party, what team you're playing for. When it comes down to the people, how is it going to affect us? How is it going to affect us on the larger scale?
You're here.
In that instance, I would like to now throw it to Ryan, who's heard both of those responses, and let him be able to rebut.
Okay. Gosh, a lot of moving targets there. Okay. So first thing, I'm not going to say a 2020 election was stolen.
I really hate that I can't hear the rebut.
I don't believe that the 2020 election was stolen. I'm so sorry, Haley. You can watch this on YouTube later and probably get the play-by-play. But I don't think it was stolen. But like I said, it didn't pass the smell test, and that is a common sentiment very much on the right, and I can understand why. Not just because I tend to caucus with them, but because it didn't pass the smell test to me. But I'm not the end-all arbiter of these things. Anyhow. Moving over, I do want to say this. If Congress could pass a law where everyone had to have the equivalent of a real ID, now I'm a fiscal conservative, okay? There's a lot of different people that join the Republican Party. I'm the fiscal kind, okay? I want to see discipline in how we spend our money. I don't want to relegate generations, of our progeny to debt that they can never climb out of. I think that's hateful. It's very short-sighted. And politicians have a nasty habit of enacting laws that they don't have to care about because they'll be dead soon, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I have like fundamental reasons why I'm a Republican. And it's not for some of the real firebrand issues that everyone gets really, kind of down in the weeds about. I kind of don't understand that, and I don't associate myself with that. An example, think of Fred Thompson and his view on abortion. So that should tell you about how I think, which I agree with former Senator Thompson, rest in peace. But anyways, the whole thing here is that if everyone had a real ID, then there would be no ambiguity. Oh, well, you have a real ID. And your previous guest had alluded that, how hard it is to get a real ID? She's right. The level of scrutiny is very high. And so if everyone had to do that, well, then there would be so much more confidence in our electoral system. And what's funny is that I'm saying this as a fiscally conservative Republican, and just my opinion.
Yeah.
I would like to see money spent by the federal government to ensure that every American citizen at no cost can obtain a real ID.
Seconded.
Real ID. And then that puts all this to bed. It's all done. You don't have to do these yes and no campaigns and gerrymandering. We're all American citizens voting now. I mean, immigration controls or no immigration controls. If they're from Timbuktu or Caracas or you name your country, and they're not from the United States, they're not going to be able to obtain a real ID in the current form. So how the heck are they going to do it any other way? This is where we can all come together and solve this problem. But is that going to happen? Well, we're all not sitting in the chamber right now, are we, to say yes and to vote for it?
What are you saying? It's not fair.
Yeah.
My issue with it, though, is that in the year of the midterms, to be trying to pass the SAVE Act and to work on all this stuff is really going to hamstring all these people who don't have time or bandwidth to go out and get a real ID, because, whoa, we've got 6 more months and we're going to be talking about redistricting for 2 months and then the primary for 2 more months. And then we'll have eight weeks of a real campaign. And I just don't know, like, if we would have gotten, if we could say, hey, for 2032, we need everybody to have a real ID. I'm on board. But to tell people right now who are, who are working a 12-hour shift at the hospital that, hey, you got to go out and get a real ID in the next couple months, and you've got to ram that through the process, and there's not enough people working there because we fired half of them. Like, that's a problem, and we can't do it this year. So I think the time frame is just really messed up, but that's my only thing. I agree with you, Ryan.
Appreciate that. Now, circling back to Haley, on the topic of trust in the system and voter fraud, SAVE Act requirements regarding therein, Ryan did make a good point that I seconded, that perhaps real IDs should be federally provided at no cost to the cost of the taxpayer would be a debate later as to whether or not it's.
I mean, frankly, if they're going to require it, obviously, driving is a privilege. Having a driver's license is a privilege. But if you are fully required to have a photo ID, then yes, the government should pay an offset of that. And if we're paying into it through our tax dollars, I don't see why not, because I'm sure the cost for something like that would be relatively low if they follow the current model for which they use, doing the background checks, uploading the documents. It could all be contained on one system. That would be an easy way to try to coax our voter bases into wanting to do that, because a lot of people I have seen in the background don't want real IDs. They don't want the government having more information than they need. And I can understand that perspective, But I mean, if we're being real, oh my gosh, I will get you dinner in a minute. Excuse me. I have a very hungry, husky man over there. Tiberius, he's here all week, guys. But yeah, I 100% agree. If the federal government is mandating it and we have to do this, then they should either offset the cost in some way, if not absorb it, because we're paying for it regardless. And if that does improve the probability of cutting voter fraud, which would also, hopefully, since we're doing all of this verification and vetting, That should also end up cutting benefits fraud, which everybody's so upset about, just streamline the systems. I mean, we talk about all of these different databases, all of these requirements. I mean, even when it comes to, and I'll throw this subject in there because nobody's brought it up yet because no, we're on this one topic. But even when it comes to, say, requirements for firearms and background checks and controlled concealed carry licenses and things like that. We already have systems in place statewide, but if we did have a streamlined federal system, that could make it easier for agencies to communicate with one another, for you to be able to move more freely, So potentially it could be a good thing depending on the perspective in which you're looking for it. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you would have nothing to fear with that. But as we've seen time and time again, and we're in an interesting season when it comes to the topic of government corruption, with certain documents being scrubbed or erased or not mentioned by certain agencies and things like that, we really cannot fully rely on the federal government to protect us and really believe that they fully, at least all of them, have our best interests in mind.
Right.
Now, on that note, I would like to bring it back to another of my prepared questions. Virginia's law also holds open the fact that if another state were to withdraw its lines before 2031 without being ordered to by a court, an example of the order to by a court, New York's attempt to do redistricting was shot down by its own court. It wasn't ordered to do it. But if another state had withdrawn its line without being ordered to by the court, the General Assembly of Virginia would then be able to withdraw Virginia's map. So they had that contingency into effect. So just yesterday, Missouri joined the ranks of another state before 2031 withdrawing its lines. So how important is Missouri's efforts to the thought process Virginia voters should have? Because now it joins Texas. It joins what Florida could do by April. Is all this going to be moot because so many other states, more than blue states, are doing it? And I want to begin this time with Mr. Pete.
Yeah, it's an arms race. And I think ultimately, if every state gerrymanders as aggressively as they can, the blue votes lose. If you count up all the votes that could be gerrymandered around the country, that could happen. But I just think that, to Ryan's point, the fact that we're here as a nation, that we are drawing lines around communities so that we don't, neither party, Republicans in Texas do not want to have real conversations and win over more progressive voters. They don't want to have those arguments because they know they won't win and they don't believe that people can change. And I think in the same way, in blue states, we are drawing lines around, some of the state legislatures are drawing lines around large voting blocks that we don't think that we can win over, because we don't think that those people can change. We don't think that our messages are going to win them over. Now, that means that our messages need to be more compelling.
Thank you.
Need to be delivered, Haley, to by more compelling candidates. And right now, we just have establishment politicians who want to stay in power, and this is going to solidify their careers. And that's the problem. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, Haley. It sounded like you had.
Yeah, I do want to throw it to Haley now and then Ryan to finish on this one.
Well, no, it's interesting, Pete, because I do agree with you on essentially almost everything you just said, because, you essentially validated, the points that I've made when it came to certain areas and communities being alienated and drawing these lines in a way that to many can be perceived as unfair. And I think we need to take more time. And like you said, another concern that was in there that I find to be very valid in my upcoming race is that we have these seasoned politicians. I mean, the incumbent, my competitor, has been in office since 1993 and has only passed 13 bills solo. And I can tell you that the redistricting would, I look at that map, and regardless of where it falls, I still see that I win because I can reach voters on every level. And I agree with you wholeheartedly after I ran Republican last year that certain areas, depending on how they run their party politics, do alienate a lot of voters. They even alienate candidates. They alienate good people, potentially, that are willing to step up and try to deliver the messages like you're saying. The problem is, depending on if you've got a good chairwoman, chairman, the whole structure of the party locally, depending on what that looks like, is unfortunately going to define the involvement in that area. And if you have, a skeleton crew that only has certain interests in mind, if they're with that hive mind mentality of you can't question our decisions, no exemptions, no this, no that, there's really no conversation, like you said. I feel like politicians, the ones like you said that have been in power, they're not used to trying. I think that's essentially why a lot of Republicans did lose last year, because the best advice I gave to a lot of them is you really need to be going out into the community. A lot of the community portions that I went into, some of my peers viewed as non-traditional and told me, make sure you carry a gun. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I used to walk barefoot through this neighborhood when I was 17, but okay. But you have to meet the people on their level. Voters aren't stupid. They may be uninformed. They may need some assistance, some guidance to understand, like anyone would, with that language Conrad mentioned, because it can be interpreted as pretty much anything. Why are we allowing these legislators to put in language that can be easily misinterpreted? From any perspective it's looked at, someone can come to a different conclusion. We need more definitive language. We need better projections on how this will affect everyone involved. And to the parties, whether it's the Republican or the Democratic Party, looking at some of these districts saying, oh, well, that's a lost cause. Well, of course it is when you don't get to know the people because they're different than you. Of course, nobody wants to have uncomfortable conversations and actually debate anymore. But the thing is if you care about educating the people around you about current issues, really educating them, not just regurgitating propaganda that you see on Fox News and CNN, but actually getting out into the community and meeting these professionals and seeing their real hands-on experience and seeing how the current impacts are, seeing how the hospitals are currently running, on bare bones staff, seeing pillars of our communities, especially in rural Virginia, have to shut down, lose access to healthcare, access to resources. Should any of us get elected in this upcoming cycle, and I know Conrad, you recently left us in this race and that bums me out. Even though you're a Democrat, just kidding. No, I have love for everybody. But the thing is we are going to be inheriting, no matter how this goes, we're going to be inheriting a mess.
That's right.
And how you vote in this upcoming election is either going to be, do I support the current mess that has been this mess for this duration of time, and we've seen very little movement, or are we ready to support and endorse candidates that have the passion, have the energy, have the want to get out there and actually be in the community and hear the people out? Because that is what the job is about. It's about the people coming to you with their woes, their gripes, and their problems, and you being the one that's ready to go to bat for them.
Right.
And if you're not ready for that and you're ready to just settle and collect an APAC check and whoever else is feeding into your campaign so you can afford millions and millions of dollars in campaigning, then, good luck to you. Good luck to you on the other side. That's all I have to say.
So let's throw it to Mr. Ryan, who I think was able to hear both Pete and Haley. And
I
have
hope
us
so.
finish up.
I'm so glad you can hear me, Ryan, even though I can't hear you. Your gestures are the best.
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Yes, no. Real quick, Conrad, you made an interesting thing. I know we're going to try to tie this all together and wrap it up here soon, I imagine. At least I will have to. But you had said that should another state behave in a certain way, that Virginia would show reciprocity if they were to back off without, any kind of, justable action by a court, that they would back off. Virginia would follow suit. I would caution you that that would still be up to the General Assembly and the governor signing that. Even if they agreed with the action that took place in another state, it would still have to go through Richmond, and be codified, because we're talking about this upcoming thing on April 21st. This is an actual amendment This is a constitutional amendment. And an amendment isn't temporary, unless you're talking about repealing the Volstead Act, right? But we're not talking about booze and the gangsters and all that stuff, right? No amendment is temporary. Look at our amendments federally. How many of them were temporary? Not one. So that's going to require a lot of legal movement. I just want to put that out there. I want that to be known. I'm not an attorney, but I mean, I'm civically minded enough to know how, remember the old cartoon, this is how a bill is made. And it kind of goes through the thing. Yeah.
And to your point, I'll just say real quick that we are also, the Democratic Party is ceding its ability to ever litigate on this precedent that we're setting again. So so once it's done, the court operates on precedent. I mean, we really need to take these things seriously, but yeah,
I completely agree. I completely agree.
Now, on that point, I will admit that I reached out to many different people in order to come on tonight, and I deliberately sought Democrats and Republicans and independents, libertarians. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get a Green Party rep on here. If you're watching, perhaps you'll be able to come on another time. But I do appreciate the multiple views of it, and I don't want it to be too heavily slanted to the supporting yes and too heavily slanted to supporting no from the show. I just want it to be largely informative, which is why I want to throw my last question out for the night, which is the actual positions we're going to take here. So to the panel, and it is unfortunate Erica isn't here because she is a very strong supporter of yes, and she's now left the show, and we'll have her come on again soon. But panel, I'd like you to air out your concerns and your support for the amendment or against. In the aspect of transparency and fairness, I'm going to lead off with my own take here. I will vote yes, and this is as someone who voted yes on the question back in 2020. So my 2026 vote is going to try and nullify my 2020 vote. I recognize that I wouldn't be supporting this in a standard year, but 2026 doesn't exist in a vacuum. Republican efforts to corner the market on the House of Representatives, which is going to affect every state, regardless if 2 to 3 states try to change it, deserves a pushback. This is a tool to do so, be what may. So I'm going to lead it to you guys. And I also want to acknowledge that I appreciate especially Mr. Pete being here because he's taking flack from his party from his own position on this. And if I would have been able to find a Republican who was a solid yes, that would have been awesome to have on the show as well. But,
a Pegasus unicorn,
Yeah.
Conrad.
That's not going to happen.
so because I know that Ryan can hear Haley and Pete, I want to lead off with Haley, then go to Pete, then finish with Ryan.
Okay, sorry. I was like, I thought you were going to go with Ryan, and I was like, cool. I've got at least 5 minutes of hand gestures that I can go feed Tiberius. But never mind. We can go with me. That's fine. He can wait. So what was the question again, Conrad? Like how I plan on voting?
I plan voting especially because you did mention earlier in the show that you hadn't voted yet, and you wanted a show like this to help you get there.
Yeah, and you know what's wild is even with Erica's responses and her saying that she wants to vote yes, between her opinion, Pete's, and then the cliff notes I've gotten from Ryan and the fabulous hand gestures, it's crazy because there's still so much uncertainty around it, because I think we all can agree that there's genuine concerns there, that we all as voters, if not having already voted, Conrad, we have valid concerns about how this is going to play out and the true fairness of it, the true equity and what this is going to do for voters. And the way I look at it, and it differs from your opinion, is, I wouldn't want to vote yes on something that I'm not 100% sure on. And even with some of the things that Erica has said, that you have said, and you've got a very strong response to it, so thank you for that. But I don't have enough certainty to say yes. And my problem too is in the marketing from the Democratic Party saying, you don't want politicians deciding these lines, but they're deciding them. We haven't had input. We haven't had time to voice our concerns. I would really like for the people to have a better platform to ensure that these lines are drawn with true fairness. So as it sits until we finish this conversation, I am still steering towards the no, just because I haven't really heard anything that's truly driving the argument to where voting yes is going to be in the best welfare of the people. So continue.
Now, in that instance, Mr. Pete, before you comment your thoughts on the matter, if you could also bring in a little bit of the flack that you've been getting, air out where it might be coming from, because I know that you're not a dino. People have accused you of being that.
A dino?
Democrat in name only.
Because like rhinos, there's rhino. I can't keep up with all of these pet names that the parties give people. I didn't know if they meant rhino, but dino because they were trying to call you old or something like that. I didn't know what a dino was supposed to be, but yeah, Democratic. Yeah, that algorithm.
I like to
Whatever.
call our current Republican incumbent here in the 6th District a rhino, a representative in name only,
Okay.
not a Republican in name only. He's definitely a Republican. But yeah, I've gotten people saying I'm helping MAGA out with their talking points. I might as well be MAGA. And I think that that's really short-sighted. To not be able to actually talk point by point. I haven't had any real conversations other than this one with folks who are other candidates who are, unless we're in person and they just want to tell me what they're thinking, but it's not on the record.
Because they're too scared. They're scared to alienate voters and they are terrified of being blocked from campaign donations. That is the biggest driving factor.
I hear that. Yeah.
The biggest.
And I definitely, the spigot is important, especially in a season when you're going to get 10 weeks to actually run a general campaign if you beat and win the primary. It's ridiculous. But so nobody has been willing to have an evidence-based conversation, talk point by point about, okay, what are we doing to our margins in urban areas if we are going to dilute them by coming into rural areas like Ryan was saying earlier? And, the last 3 cycles have shown that when you light a fire under the populace and you have a really high voter turnout, that benefits Republicans. That's not going to, we're lighting a fire under the Republican Party, pissing them all off, and we're going to cause Democrats to become complacent, and those moderates that we would have won over, they're not going to come out. And I just feel like with a 5.3% margin, that's what my district would be if we get this redistricting. Well, 5.3 is not going to be much after you take away the complacency vote, you add the Republican lit a fire under me vote, and you take away the moderates that would have swung either way just with a reasonable argument. So I really feel like nobody's willing to have that conversation. And when all the establishment politicians on either side are telling me what to do, I get pretty dubious because I don't trust it when everybody is handing down a purity test to me. So I haven't voted yet, just like Haley, but I'm still leaning no because I feel like, hey, y'all might get this. Y'all are going to get a couple of freshman representatives for like 4 years. They're not going to have any power in the House, and they're going to maybe pass a resolution to maybe they're going to impeach Trump for a 3rd time. Good for you. What's that going to do? Because you still have Stephen Miller and JD Vance and all the ideologues underneath Trump who are going to continue pushing this agenda.
Not to forget the Supreme Court justices.
Exactly. And if then in 4 years we actually do go back, because it really is a temporary thing, who knows if that's real? Well, what are you going to have? You're going to go back to the old incumbents, and the party is going to swing the gerrymandering back the other way. And it's just if we don't get our own house in order and our own communities talking to each other, we're going to continue down this road of just electing, firebrands on either side instead of actually getting back on track. And that's what scares me. Good for them. They're going to get freshman representatives for like 2 or 4 years. Well, I'm going to have to live out here in Western Virginia with a bunch of pissed off neighbors for the next generation or two, because we just said, we don't care what you think, and you're too stupid to read your own amendment and know what it says. And I think that that's really, really disrespectful. And so if you just look at the plain language reading of this referendum, it is not honest. And I think that we need to be really clear about that. And I know that that's going to get me some hate on my side, but whatever, let it come.
What are primaries for, right?
That's right.
In that instance, let's finish up with Mr. Ryan. Your opinion on what you've heard so far and your take.
Also,
Well-
Mr. Ryan, I want you to know that as you speak, I don't know why, but you're now like my political version of Guy Fieri.
Ooh.
And by the time you're done with your masterpiece, I don't know if you're making tacos or burgers or whatever it is you're doing, but
I
I
do
want
cook.
some of that when you're done.
Yeah, no, I'm actually a very good cook. I put it on Facebook all the time. You guys, Conrad, he sees some of that stuff. Yeah, no, I'm a very good cook. But yeah, no, honestly, first of all, Conrad, thanks for having me out here tonight to talk about this. I've never been one to shy away from having discussions, especially with people who do not think, congruent with me. In fact, I actually desire to have conversations with individuals like that. I think that, variety is the spice of life, especially politically.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate you having me out here tonight to talk about this. And Pete, I'll be honest with you. I agree with a lot of what Pete said. I know it sounds like I'm taking the easy out, but I mean, I kind of agree. And I agree with some of the things that Haley said.
I can hear you now.
Sweet. So yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I think I've been pretty clear in my position and why I think what I think. A definite no. And that's because I don't like the idea of mutually assured destruction. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's what we're going to inaugurate here. The problem with Pandora's box is that once you open it, right, you can't shut it. And I have a very real fear politically that is exactly what is going to happen in this country if we decide to do this. Because I'm telling you, it's conservation of mass, right? E equals MC square. If this happens over here, this is going to happen over here, and it's all going to equal out. And I just feel it's going to be very destructive. So.
So Ryan, you think this is the opening of Pandora's box and it wasn't a couple of things that happened earlier in the year?
Oh no, not to say that there haven't been so many things that have happened that could qualify as Pandora's box. I'm just saying that this is a glaring example of definitely a situation where I think that could be the case.
Oh yeah.
So again, it's my opinion. I speak for myself and myself only, and I am not a candidate this cycle.
Why not?
That's a time for another show, right, Conrad? So yeah,
Well,
no.
it's not too late for you to jump into the Republican primary if you want a primary jinx.
No. Nope. No, I like what little hair I have left. I'm going to keep that. And no, not doing it right now. And besides, I got a lot going on with my family and work and all that. So, but I'm happy to always come on and shoot the breeze. So,
Well, thanks for the response, Ryan, and taking us to Burger Town.
hey, anytime. Thanks, guys. It was great having y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Be ready if we have a save show.
All right. Have a good one. See you guys.
Awesome. Take care.
All right. Now, final thoughts. I do want to put up on the screen some pictures that I saved here. Look at this from the Republican Party of Virginia. Virginia Democrats are now saying the quiet part out loud. This seems unfair in Virginia, says Don Beyer. That's because it is unfair. Vote no, vote early. And then I'll quote here. It's not a done deal by any means, Don Beyer said. We have to effectively make the case that even though this seems unfair in the state of Virginia, it's totally fair for America, for those of us who believe that taking back the House is the most significant thing we can do to stop Donald Trump. So that, of course, is a little bit of the greater Democrat side being critiqued by the greater Republican side.
How are we going to stop Donald Trump, though? And that's another thing that Pete had gotten into, and we, listed off, the Supreme Court justices that he's already enacted and all of the support staff and everyone there, right? So, let's say we go on a huge "We Hate Donnie" campaign, which has already happened time and time and time. And what's crazy is with all of the recent revelations in the Epstein files and everything else, all of this is going on. And yet he has not been impeached. And it doesn't really look like that's going to happen. So how in this marketing is redistricting going to hurt Trump when he's going to be out of office in a couple of years anyways? I mean, unless we're still going to be pushing the myths that he's going to run for a third term, which, I mean, are we still doing that too?
I don't suggest that anything Trump says is a myth, because it's like a Schrodinger's cat thing. It's either going to happen or it won't, but the possibility is still there. So in which case, is Viper 2.4, John?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So Mr. John Thomas, who ran in SD 15, ran because he wanted to stop this bill, which.
Well, yeah, he's a Republican. So.
Yes.
Yeah. That's just, it is what it is, Conrad. I mean, Republicans are being told directly to vote no. Democrats are being told to vote yes. They either throw Spamberger up there with her gerrymandering quote, or they throw Trump up there with the quote. And the whole idea behind the marketing right now is to say to voters, well, if you want to stop Trump, vote this way. If you want to stop Spamberger, vote this way. It's not really going to stop much of anything. Maybe Spamberger, when she runs for another term, it'll probably help her out with the lines and everything and how it's drawn.
Remember, she can't run back to back.
Oh, well, then never mind. So that wouldn't even be a play on the field. So therefore, like, how in reality, once again, we get back to it, how is driving your voter base to say, if you do this, it's going to hurt this person? It's not going to hurt him. And I'm not just saying that because like MAGA and all of that, but like in all reality, like if he hasn't already been impeached, if we can't trust our judicial system, our multiple agencies to do whatever it is they're supposed to do to line it up to where that's happened. I mean, really though, how is that going to affect President Trump in any way?
There is something to be said for, President Trump is one thing, but his agenda can be greatly diminished with a Congress that is, we can actually abolish or defund some of these agents. In ICE can be abolished. The Agricultural Adjustment Commission, of 1933. Well, who's ever heard of that? Well, nobody, because it was abolished in 1942 because it was past its prime. Like, we've abolished agencies before. It's not radical to say that, and we need to get rid of ICE. So some of these things that need to occur could occur if we had Congress back on our side. I think that's real. And so I can see the justification that people are saying, oh, well, we need to get Congress back no matter what. But I'm like, well, this isn't the right thing because you're just going to hurt yourself and you're going to hurt your community. And this is, go ahead. Sorry.
This is definitely why I wanted to have yourself on, as you mentioned that you have literally felt the pinch from this because of FEMA-related cuts.
Oh, yeah.
And they're trying to literally draw FEMA out of the government. They're trying to draw the Department of Education out of the government.
I mean, hell, I'm a week away from having a daughter. My wife's about to, we're just waiting for to go to the hospital one of these days coming up. So, I mean, like, I'm concerned for women's rights, for all of these things, that if we don't codify same-sex marriage protections, if we don't make sure that those are things that I feel very strongly about, but I just don't think that, this isn't long-term success at getting to that point.
Wait a second. And Pete, you're running a Republican?
Nope.
I'm sorry?
No, he's running Democrat?
Yes.
Okay, in the primary. Okay, cool. So yeah, I was just trying to follow along with your points with the, LGBTQ community equality and all of the protections. So carry on. Sorry. Just want to make sure.
Yeah. I just think we have some fundamental liberties that need to be codified by Congress because we can't trust the court to uphold any of these protections. Roe v. Wade, you see what happened there. And I feel really strongly that my little daughter who's coming along in a week or so, like, I want her to have protections. I just don't think that redistricting is a good idea. It's gonna be backsliding on community reconciliation, and that's critical right now.
And this is where my petty version of progressivism here would critique Democrats because they have had control of the legislature before and let that pass.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now.
Who was in charge? Who could have vetoed that back then, or like use some like that's the thing, you know. And once again, why I held a lot of the unpopular opinion when it came to conservatives and Republicans, because I do not like blanketed laws when it comes to having to choose pro-life or pro-choice. I always say, you know, in a utopia, I would be pro-life because everything would go right, right? Well, as we know as adults, Pete, do you have any other kids? Is this your first?
This is
Okay,
first.
well, congratulations on this being your first. I have 4 daughters. I'm a single mom of 4. And also having a master's of science and health education. My secondary master's is in emergency and disaster management. I worked as a combat medic and, you know, worked under a number of providers licenses, PAs, MDs, you name it. One was the private flight surgeon for George Bush when I was in Iraq. Great experience. But what that comes down to is I have realistic hands-on experience. I know based on my care through the federal government, whether it's with the Department of Veterans Affairs, whether it's within a military installation, even if it's in the private sector, that I am constantly having to advocate for myself as a woman. I am constantly having to advocate for my daughters. And it is a scary, scary world out there. And one of the biggest challenges that you will face in any area that you're in is going to be constantly educating people. I can't tell you how many women who are 30, 40 years my senior, which, you know, I'm young. I'll be 37 this year. But I'm having to constantly educate women about their own bodies when they've had children. They think that there are certain things that exist now in healthcare that don't. And they really believe that because they've been fed that by propaganda, by news articles, by, you know, clickbait, by whatever else. And so if you do really want to make an impact, Pete, even if you hold the popular opinion or if you hold the most popular opinion, the biggest challenges you will face is going to be educating these voters and letting them know that you are there for them, whether you completely agree with them or not. And that's what we're not seeing in politics. That's what we're seeing in the division of these parties. And that's why we're seeing a further division of the parties internally, because no one can seem to agree on anything. And when we fight over petty things and when we shift the focus to issues like redistricting, when we're having to worry about women's rights, individuals' health
Let's talk about
care, the
Medicaid,
protection of
SNAP Medicaid.
children.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
You're right.
On the large scale of things, it seems silly to have this conversation, even though it has so many future deep implications. It doesn't
Right.
seem like something we should be rushing.
Right.
And that is
You're
something
right.
I would also like to bring up from Fair Elections Virginia. They say voting yes stops Donald Trump and his MAGA allies. Power grab. Election day is April 21st. So find out more. And they say on iwillvote.com. So
I love propaganda. Power grab. Because we don't know. We have no idea what you're referencing in that at all.
I also want to show up on the screen here. Stop
No,
the
not Jason
gerrymandering.
Miyares.
We got some Bill DeSteff and Anna Ferrotata on that too. March 27th from 6 to 7:30 in the Moot Courtroom at Robertson Hall and Regent is going to be an anti-gerrymandering town hall. So we know what side they're going to take.
Turning Point Action Gen Z Coalition. Huh.
Yep.
I have to
Throwing
look
it
them up.
Is it the Turning Point USA people?
It says Turning Point
Ah,
Action Gen Z
sick.
Coalition.
Yeah, you know, I went to one of their seminars recently and it was quite insightful. You know, I enjoy going into spaces, you know, and with that, you know, Conrad, if you ever want to go with me on a date to a Republican thing, I'll make sure you're taken care of. But I like going into those spaces because you hear the perspectives. And like you were talking about, Pete, and you know, my guy Fieri, who's no longer with us, it comes down to the moderate votes, those independent voters, the libertarians. We have the potential this year in this political climate to see people coming out that have never come out before. If you really want to impact change, you need to be doing deep outreach into these, you know, younger generations that have the vote. I mean, in my district alone, we've got 250,000 voters within my age range, you know. We're not soliciting, we are not speaking to the people, because if we were, they would be fired up. And if you can't get people fired up, then, you know, maybe you shouldn't be in a primary, you know, and that's a tough place to be. And I wish you like the utmost luck in that. I know as a previous Republican, now Libertarian, you know, the popular thing is no party politics, but no, I wish you the best of luck. That is, and how many people are in your primary? 8?
No, his is different.
For me, it's 3 right now.
Okay.
Two
if-
might.
Well, I'm sorry.
Isn't it 2 might or you might? No, Beth isn't it. Stan
Beth
might
is.
jump into it. Yeah.
Ken's in. Rasul might jump in, but then 7th district is where I'd be mapped into, and that's got a whole different crowd of folks up in Northern Virginia trying to throw their hat in. So it's
Well, learn how to like hats. Learn how to like a different style of hat if you have to be with the people of Nova. Everyone, and you know, we talk about these different areas of geography. At the end of the day, we're all people. The biggest war that we're seeing in the US right now has nothing to deal with the R's, the D's, red, blue, and has everything to deal with poverty right now. The biggest war we are facing and seeing is in the people that are impoverished, that are struggling. And until we reach those people and the people beyond and compel them to care enough about our communities, we will not see change, and we will see the same regurgitated garbage and garbage candidate puppets spewing the same thing because they want to get that quick check so they can claim it on comment.
here. So they can climb the ladder and go to another position after they're done with their stint in state
Career
politics.
Yeah, so they can go be a chairperson with no power or influence, just so they can add it to their resume and put their face on the website.
Also,
Sir, I will get you dinner in a minute, I promise.
the town hall for the NAACP Thursday, March 26th, so tomorrow, 6:30 to 8, in the Clarence V. Cuffey Community Center in Chesapeake. So that is likely going to take the yes vote, and shows you that there are town halls in Hampton Roads that are for yes and for no, and to be ready for both. And on that fact, I want to thank you both, and Erica and Ryan, for joining tonight. And I just hope you have a really great weekend going forward.
Haley, keep it real. Conrad, thank you so much. Y'all are great.
Thank you, Pete. And hey, reach out anytime. Conrad, something I would like to add, and a positive note is that my campaign manager, Nicholas Olenek, and I fought hard at the last state conference to change our charter. So that way, like, let's say there isn't a libertarian candidate running in your district, we can actually support different candidates as long as they align with our, you know, libertarian ideals and values of just, you know, liberty and minding your own business. So, you know, Pete, as you move on, I can't wait to see your career flourish. And you know, if you get through the primary, we can see what's going on. I love giving kudos and just positive vibes to those of us that are willing to be forward thinkers and think outside of ourselves and party politics. So I
And just
appreciate
remember,
your input.
Both of you have the shared interest in emergency management.
Oh,
There
yeah.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost got recruited by FEMA a couple of years ago, and they got rid of my position in 2017. So, yeah.
In any case, thank you guys for coming on, and stay
Team
active.
is lost.
Thank you, Conrad. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Have a great night.